Hey YouTube, Savandros here. Today I was doom scrolling on Twitter this morning and I came across this brand new animation app that sounded really promising. A lot of professional animators were giving it a lot of high praise, and I heard that it has both raster and vector drawing. So I really want to see what it could do because the layout of the UI looked really interesting, and I'm always open to just trying out new applications. Now, I was taking a look at the different features of this application that are listed on the website, and I have to say it sounds really promising and actually more promising than your general animation application. So we can go down here and see what they're offering with this animation app. Now, this app is called Umoupen, and it promises a whole lot of things that I really hope actually pan out. It promises raster and vector drawing. Of course, you can use styluses, selections and transformations, layers and groups. Something that's really interesting that it promises is reusable assets. So this would work kind of like your old Adobe Flash library or Adobe Animate library, where you can just kind of put a asset that you want to keep reusing in your animation, and you can just keep pasting it into your timeline. I love the Adobe Flash animation library. That's actually where I started my animation, so I'm a little biased. So I would really love another application that reminds me of Flash. Something that's also nice is it also has a mode for just drawing. If you want to create notes or comics or animations, you can also do that. It has rulers and guides. There are workspace shortcuts. So there are docked panels that you can change. So it has a customizable workspace and it has shortcuts already in the application. Hopefully they're customizable. There's frame by frame animation and tweening, which is great. There are also built-in storyboard and sequencing features. For professional animators, you can use timesheets. You can also import and export PSDs, FLAs, as well as ABRs, which are Photoshop brushes. And you can export in GIF, MP4, and PNG. Now, the four really interesting things to me are at the bottom, aside from vector, which is that you can bring in 3D reference objects for your animations. You can also add effects directly in the application. So hopefully this works in a way where you can do like full compositing level animation work in this one application without having to take your animation out to After Effects. I really like that it has an endless canvas. A lot of animation apps have that, but it's always a bummer when they don't. So it's an endless canvas and you can draw wherever you like. And what's really cool is they also have online sessions where people can join in and animate alongside you. And here you can host or join a live drawing session over the internet. You can chat with connected users. And you can also control your layers of animation so no one else can mess it up if you want that level of control. So Umoupen to me sounds very, very interesting, and I hope it lives up to what it's being described as. We're gonna check it out in a moment, but before that, let's just go over the pricing for this application. So it is really cheap, and it's nice to know that it's coming to both Mac and Windows, and it's also coming to iPad this month in July. So I'm really excited about that, and it's only $20. They also have a free trial, which is what I downloaded and I'll be using for this video. And the iPad version will only be $10, which actually makes it competitive with a lot of iPad animation applications like Toon Squid, Procreate Dreams, CaliPeg, and more. So I just hope it's just as good as them, and if not even better, because it kind of sounds like it's trying to blow these other applications out of the water. Let's jump into it. So jumping straight in, there's a lot to be excited for with this application. As we can see, this is the home screen, and here on the left, you'll be seeing a bunch of different options for templates, and on the right, you'll see anything you've created in your canvas. I've went ahead and created a few projects over the last few days. I wanted to just jump straight into a video, but I actually found there was a lot to learn with this application because it's very in-depth. But anyway, let's go into it. So on the left, we see we can make templates for drawing, comics, which is book, animations, and we can also do online sessions where we draw or animate with other artists. Now let's see what these templates can create. For one, we can create something called an infinite canvas, and this is a canvas that basically just you can draw on it at whatever size and keep moving around the canvas like an infinite notebook. So let's try and see what happens when we zoom out. As we see, we can zoom out there, and then I can bring my brush up and I can just draw out here, and then I can zoom out fully on this stroke, and I can keep drawing here as well. So it's really nice to just get a lot of ideas on an infinite canvas, and then you can crop it to export whenever you want to export, like a specific area of your infinite canvas. Moving on, let's jump into the other templates like we have. We also have book for comics, and as we can see, we can also make a vector or raster layer at any time when we're starting a project, but it doesn't matter because we can use these simultaneously once we create a project as well. We won't be locked off to just a vector file or a raster file. So we see we could jump into the manga preset, and we'll be given these guides that basically are just the guidelines you would normally have when you're creating a comic on your template. And from here we can see the pages toolbar, and on the pages toolbar we can basically just make more pages. Now we can put another single page if we want it to be like a basic spread where we would draw on this side and then we would draw something on this side. Now when we create a single page, we can move it around by itself. It won't be controlled by the other page next to it, and we can rearrange the layouts. We can also create a double page if we want them to be grouped together, and we can just draw on them as if they are a splash page. And when we move the pages, they'll also move alongside each other. So for our comics, if we wanted to, we could also just use our shape tools, and because the shape tools work very simply, we can just create, let's say, a circle for our chat bubble. And then we could add 2 lines, and we can add a rectangle as well for the frame. And after that, because we have vector tools, we can just erase everything at an intersection, and there we have our chat bubble as well as our frame. So really cool. And we don't need to drag handles with the vectors in this application. It works like Adobe Flash. So we can just grab our vector lines and move them, simple as that, which will also be extremely helpful for animation. So how else does Umoupen set itself apart from its competition? Well, let's see. Let me jump into a file. The first thing is that its customization to make your user experience good is beyond what it usually is in any application. So let's see what we can do in Umoupen. For our user interface, we can move just about everything. You see how I have this toolbar on the right? I can just hold on it, and like a phone or tablet, once we hold on our tool, we can just move it anywhere, like how we would move an app on our phone. And now my tools are on the left side, and it organizes everything in order, as well as my colors that I had on this side already. I can move this back, and we can use any of the 4 corners to organize our user interface, essentially. We can also choose to hide things that we don't want to see. For example, I'm not using the brush tool, or I'm not using the shape tool. So I can close them off, and now after I've clicked them, they are no longer on my toolbar. Much smaller toolbar, I only see what I need to see. I can also just bring them back whenever I need them, super quickly. No need to jump through menus to do all of this. What else is cool is that we can customize just about everything we put out. We have these layers looking like this, but I can turn it off of compact mode and we can have bigger layers. I can also drag these toolbars. Now, let's say I also have layers set to be in this toolbar at the top, even though I had it on the side. If I X out my layers, it will contextually pop back up here, and now I can use layers like a pop-up tab rather than continuously having it at the side. I prefer it at the side, so I'll put it back. But other things we can do is we can go into deeper settings. We can change the highlight color for our whole application, and it works so fast. We also have a dark mode, which looks really good. And we have a great theme for both the dark and the light mode, if the light mode is too light for you. From here, we can also change the scale of the UI. We can change the scale of the fonts in the application. We can change how frames look on our timeline. So right here, you'll see it looks a little bit hollow. When we draw, it will become a full circle. And whenever there's an empty content frame, it will be transparent. If we change the style, it will just look a little bit cleaner. We can also change how our two colors look. Though that doesn't change how it works really. And we can also both show where we're drawing off screen in this application. This will only work with vector layers. Or we can decide to crop all of that and not see what's off screen by going to view and clicking on show pasteboard content. I prefer to see what's going off the screen so I can make bigger drawings sometimes. Additionally, if you don't like these floating toolbars, you can click flush toolbars and you can make them have this bordered style like a regular application would. That might look cleaner to you. I'm going to go back to light mode for the sake of the video, but let's just see what else we can do. Something we also can do is we can click on thumbnail view on our timeline, and then we'll show thumbnails. I'm going to change it back to classic mode. And when we draw, we'll see a thumbnail of our drawing on our timeline. Pretty cool. And then whenever you want a bunch of space to draw, you can just hide any toolbars that you have on the side. And now look at that. It is so clean for drawing. If I want even more space, I would put it back to the flush toolbars. And now we have these floating toolbars and it looks extremely spacious. Last but not least, we can also move our timeline to the top or the bottom automatically with the application. Now, some other cool things in this application, one that is the coolest by far is that we can draw with textured brushes on a vector layer. And this is something I've only really seen in Blender and in Clip Studio Paint. But as you can see, I'm drawing on a vector layer and I can use this textured brush. Not to mention, you can import both your Photoshop and your Clip Studio Paint brushes. So there's no need to try and start over in this application. What I did here is I just imported a bunch of my different brushes from Clip Studio. And you'll see I can just change to a bunch of different brushes that I want to use that are textured on the vector layer. Do note that the textured brushes will only work on the pen tool in the vector layer. But what's so cool about drawing with vector is that it's so flexible, and then you can also make so many edits to your drawings, which is really beneficial for animation and art. So for example, let's say if I had drew a guideline on this face to get down the proportions I wanted for the face, right? I can then go and use my eraser tool and put it to split, which basically cuts the line at intersections. And when we go over our drawing, we can just keep doing this and restore all of our clean lines and get rid of all the scratchy ones that we used while we were drafting our drawing originally. And right there, now we have a clean drawing. Other things we can do is we have super simple vector editing in this application. So we can just grab a stroke and change it. Let's say if I duplicated this frame and I just wanted to change it to be a little bit of a different frame, I turn on my onion skin and then I could just drag different parts of the animation on until I see it fit that it is a unique frame. So cool stuff. Of course, you can do it better than how I did it, but I'm just showing it quickly. So this is really cool, and this really speeds up the workflow of your animation. Not to mention, a lot of the time, vectors can be more accurate when you're filling your drawings in applications. So you can also, once again, fill in the application. If you fill on a vector layer, it will show you if you can fill before you even try to do it. It will highlight areas that are fillable as you scroll over them with the fill tool, which is very intuitive. Really love that. You can also fill, of course, on raster layers and you can use the vector layer as a reference. If I bring up my tolerance and turn down my fill gap, it should fill a little bit better than how it did. Sometimes it's still working a little bit buggy currently, but it tends to work pretty well. Now, of course, we have all the things that you would generally want from a 2D animation application. We can color code layers. If we want, we can change the opacity.
Effects that we can add as well as symbols. So when we finish an animation, we can add something to what we call the gallery. And the gallery will basically place our animations, pictures, or music in a place where we can just reuse them on the timeline whenever we see fit. So as we can see, I have this animation that I've added to the game. So as we can see, we have this animation that I've added to the gallery, and I can just drag it to the stage. And then it will just play my whole animation. If we look on the timeline, we'll see that it is both a vector layer, and symbols can only be vector layers, and you can also only add keyframes to vector layers. So why don't we keyframe in some effects? And something we'll also see is that this is only one frame. That's because it's playing all of our animation in an isolated layer. So when we double click our symbol, either in the gallery or on the timeline, it will take us into this isolated view where we can see our whole original animation. And here we can see all the original frames that it plays out in. And you can manipulate these before you go back to the timeline if you want to, and it will reflect those changes when you go back. Now, when we go back to our timeline, we'll see our animation playing once again. If we want, we can just keep adding these symbols. And now we have 3 of the same animation playing. We can also put them at different times, and we can put multiple symbols on just one layer. Now, something we can do is we can even mess with the size of these. So I could make the bowls bigger, and I can make one smaller. And now we have 3 different repeatable animations playing on the track. Pretty cool stuff, right? Well, it gets cooler. Now we can do something like add effects. If we open up the effects toolbar, it's very intuitive. It will just show us the different kind of effects we can add to our animation as we hover over the effects. Now let's click on Gauge and Blur and add Gauge and Blur to our animation. So once you click on it, it will add a Gauge and Blur effect. And we can edit this by changing the radius. And we'll see as we drag it, we add more Gauge and Blur to our drawing. Now we're going to animate this Gauge and Blur rather than just having it be static. We'll open up our keyframe editor right here, which is called the tween editor. And we'll go to our last frame, and we're going to add a keyframe here. And now we'll bring up our radius. And it didn't work the first time, so I just clicked it again, and now we can see that our effects pop up. We're going to want to open up effects, open up Gauge and Blur, and since we're editing the radius, we'll want to see the radius on the timeline. Now let's once again create this keyframe, and let's increase our radius. Now let's go back to the first keyframe, and we'll see that a keyframe is already placed here because of this diamond, and we're going to drag our radius down to 0. Now when we play it, we'll see that our animation gets more blurry over time. Something cool we could do with this is we could even change the timing. We could add another keyframe in the middle, and we could keep our radius lower when it's still in the middle. So it will blur slow at the beginning and fast at the end. And we can even edit these timings on the timeline here and make it come in even more smooth. The more it's going up is the faster the effect is being applied, and the lower it is the closer it is to being a regular drawing. Something we can also do is we can move our animations. So if we go to our symbol and we close effects, we can just add a keyframe on position, for example. Now, because the line is straight, that means that there are currently no animation on the X position. We're going to change this. We're going to go to the first keyframe and we'll leave our position. Then on our last keyframe, we're going to drag our circle to the left. And now that the line has changed, it shows that there's some animation there. And now we can play and we can see that our symbol is moving to the left. What's cool also is we can edit this visually rather than just on the timeline in this application. So if I drag this back this way, the ball will only move to the left a little bit. So we can do a lot of interesting things here. We can make the ball move up, or we could even do something like curve our animation by dragging it out, and then it will go down, then up in a curve. Really interesting, and that's very intuitive for how artists can use keyframing. So I'm very happy with how they implemented this.
Oh, one last cool thing I forgot. If you create a screenshot or just have anything on your clipboard, like you copied something, and let's show an example. I'm going to create a screenshot. The app will automatically recognize that something is on your clipboard, and then you can automatically create a file from that. And we'll see that the screenshot I just took automatically creates a file. So this would be cool if I was trying to do something like I wanted to screen grab a image from Pinterest or something as a reference, and I just wanted to automatically make a file of that reference as a drawing maybe. And then we can just automatically open our reference. That is so cool. So yeah, I think that's about it for the video. There's so many things that I haven't even discovered about this application, but it is so exciting that it's coming out. I feel like this is really my dream application for animation. And what's funny is I thought this was another application being made by a big company, like Sony is making this animation studio called Anime Canvas. Aside Cloverworks, it's an anime studio. And this application kind of looks like it has the things they were promising in that whole big animation suite with a big budget behind it. This is a great steal for like $20, and you get permanent access. And this is a super strong application. I can't wait for it to come to the iPad. I hope it's really good with touch shortcuts and gestures. But yeah, very excited for the future of this and the future of animation with this as a tool that we can use. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share if you want to stay updated on animation software news as well as animation on the iPad. Make sure to hit the bell and make sure to hit the hype because this application is so exciting for animators. Thanks again. Bye.